Good morning, students. We are back to our lectures on history of Indian cinema. We started with the silent films, and in the last class, we were dealing with 1930s, which was the era of sound, and the silent era ends. We have actually discussed all these things. We will quickly go through all these details. It is the silent era started with the age with the first feature film Raja Harishchandra, and it ends with Alam Ara in 1931. And 1931 was also the age where we see the emergence of all those indigenous films. So we have this 27 films made in different languages, and then we talked about how sound transformed Indian cinema, how dance and music became the regular feature, which is still the feature of Indian cinema, which actually make it distinct from other cinemas for the rest of the history. And we looked into this particular cinema, Indra Sabha, which had 70 songs, and we talked about the fragmentation of Indian industry into Hindustani, Tamil, Bengali, and other film industries, and how it proved to be a challenge to Indian film industry, where this single big single market fragmented into small regional markets. And then we talked about the change in the trends in 1930s, how these directors were fascinated by all these social themes. So we see the transition from mythological themes to social themes. We have these pioneers like V. Shandaram, P.C. Barua, and Mehboob Khan. And we also discussed the emergence of established studios. Along with that, we talked about the interplay between modernity and tradition, how there was the cinema which dealt with the traditional society, the themes related to the traditional society, and uh, we have all these films like Fearless, the Handawali story, Tufan Mail, which is all these Wadia movie tone productions, and this Fearless Nadia became a phenomenon. So there was this interplay between modernity and tradition. Now we move to 1940s. So it was actually the decade of unrest, struggle, and hope. So 1940s was actually a tumultuous age. You may know that it is due to the outbreak of Second World War, in which India was also an unwilling participant, and it actually drastically changed the film industry. You may know that still we were importing all those film stocks from Western countries. So, with the outbreak of war, we had the scarcity of film stocks, and excuse me, this scarce film stocks were actually rationed out by the colonial government to a few established studios, and they had to reciprocate their gratitude towards this colonial government by dedicating at least one film in five to the subject of the war effort. So we have this director V. Shantaram who made an anti-Japanese film, Dr. Kotnas Ki Amar Kahani, which was set in China and recounting the tale of an Indian doctor who helped the communist forces fight the Japanese invaders. And this age was also an age of intense political activity. We have this urbanization, social change is happening, capitalism, and fervent nationalist struggles. happening during this period. So along with that, we see the there arose a kind of strict censorship of political content in cinema, and the films that ridiculed British soldiers, government officials, the police were immediately banned. So all these directors didn't want to risk their capital by having their films banned. So even and then, excuse me, yet they wanted to capture the nationalistic patriotic fervor of the time, and they actually resolved this dilemma. So they can't use intense political content in their films, and but they had to, being an Indian, they had to use this medium to to generate patriotism in the public. So they actually devised a method. So that is very interesting. Here we can see the reintroduction of mythological themes. So Indian films took to mythology to narrate Indian political struggle in a coded language to Indian audience. For example, we had this film Sikandar, in which we see brave Indian king repelling Alexander the Great, who attempts to conquer our country. And this film actually provided several occasions for rousing speeches on the need for national freedom and Indian independence. And there is this another film, Ramarajya. It shows the epic battle between God Rama and Ravana, and it actually, the director was trying to signify the India's struggle against the evil colonizer. So they used mythology in the foreground. They foregrounded mythology, but in the background they were uh, trying to inject, or we can say that it was something like a patriotism in disguise. So, and we have this another film, it was Kismet. So they had this super hit song in which we see a powerful rendition in which all these Germans and Japanese soldiers are warned to stay away from India. So this song is actually Dur Hatto. So please search for this song. The movie is Kismet and Dur Hatto. And in the movie we see the Indians asking Germans and Japanese to stay away from India. But as an Indian, we will understand they are not actually not only against Japanese and German soldiers, it was also directed against colonizers, British colonizers too. So, this particular film was a huge success, and by 40s, we can see that Indian film completely indigenized the apparatus of filmmaking machine in Indian ethos. Epic consciousness was already inscribed on Indian screen.